Hey everyone, Havoc here. Gonna do another tank review. Today we're gonna do the Japanese Tier 8 premium tank, the Edelweiss. I wasn't originally going to purchase this tank, so congratulations to Wargaming for getting another impulse buy. But here on the last day that the tank is available, I decided to purchase it. And I'm gonna put out this tank review today so that you guys have a chance to purchase it. I figure if you see this tank review tomorrow or later on this week, it's not gonna do you a lot of good because of the fact that the tank will no longer be available in the store. So I know it's Sunday, but if you're watching this video on YouTube, you still have a chance to purchase the tank by the end of the night. So I wanted to do this review and give you that opportunity. Originally, I wasn't going to purchase this tank because of some things that I'd seen from PC streamers doing reviews on this tank. Some stuff with the crews that I wasn't really too excited about. Plus, I didn't really feel like I needed a Japanese premium tank. But I decided after 2 weeks of going up against these tanks on the battlefield and seeing how they were as an enemy, I was kind of impressed with them. They have very bouncy armor. They're well known for their speed and maneuverability, and they have a good gun. So at the last minute, I decided I want to know what this tank is all about. It looks like fun, so I decided to purchase it. And now I'm doing a review for you guys so that you guys have an opportunity to try and get it yourself. I have only played 2 games in this tank, and I've already decided to do a review and let you guys know this tank is OP. So let's get started with the review, and I'll tell you what I like about this tank. For starters, I'll do equipment real quick. I'm going to burn through equipment and consumables and crew skills. If you're watching my videos, you see this all the time, so it shouldn't be anything surprising. Gun rammer, vertical stabilizer, those items are staple items in all tanks that I play. If they are available, you should always use them, and they are available for this tank. I decided to go with coated optics over GLD or vents. I prefer coated optics, and especially with this tank, because I'm going to use it as a spotter, because it has a good concealment value, great view range, extremely fast and maneuverable, can get into key positions right away to start the game. So I'm going to play it more like a traditional medium. I'll make a lot of references in this review to this tank being like a CDC. I've decided that that's a tank that is a good tank to bounce off of as far as how this tank compares to other Tier 8 non-preferential matchmaking premiums in the game. I want to stress this tank is not a preferential matchmaking tank, just in case you were wondering about that. Let's go into consumables, supplies. Right away, I want to start by saying that I use premium consumable in this tank. It has a 10% chance of engine fire, which is extremely low in World of Tanks. So if you were ever going to forego a fire extinguisher for a premium consumable for a tank, this would be a tank to do it in, just because it has such a low chance of fire in the engine when you get shot. So I did that. I went with small first aid, small repair kit because I like silver. I have gone with a really high mixture of APCR. It's not the pen on this tank is not bad. It's not superior for Tier 8 Premium either. It's but it's good. It's good enough. But since you are non-preferential matchmaking, you can see Tier 10 tanks. I figure there's a lot of ammo on board this tank. You can do a whole bunch of AP and APCR, so that if you do get into a Tier 10 game, you won't be strapped for premium ammo when you need it. But if you get into a Tier 8 game, you have plenty of AP. And I don't do a lot of HE anymore. I'm going to save time and just say that I'm not a big fan of HE. The more and more I play the game, the less I rely on it. Unless you get that premium high pen HE that, you know, like the RU-251 or the Brazilian Bulldog or some of the higher tier British mediums will have that. Like the Centurion 7.1 has the 105mm pen HE. Or the Centurion Action X has nice HE. Stuff like that. But if this is not good HE, so it's very unreliable as whether or not it will full pen and do a high damage roll. So, I only carry a handful for special occasions, like resetting cap, or maybe some key tracking, or if I really feel like going for broke on a rim or in a waffle. So, there's my HE story. And crew skills, I decided to use this tank as a spotter, as I stated earlier, much like I used the CDC. And in order to do that, you go with camouflage and view range being your primary skills first. So for me, this is how I would do my skills for this tank. I would definitely do Sixth Sense, Brothers in Arms, Camouflage, Situational Awareness, Recon, then now your view range skills are capped out. I would go into muffled shot, green thumb. I still don't have silent driving on here yet. I'm gonna kind of put that on the back burner. That would kind of round out and finish all my camo skills. I did elect to go with like gun skills because gun handling on this tank is good, but you know it could always be better. It's not the best. And I did repairs because I think this tank gets tracked a good amount. It's got some really big meaty tracks. And other than that, it's hard to pen from the front a little bit. I also did clutch braking because you really want to kind of angle this tank a lot, and it doesn't have the greatest traverse speed ever. So you really want to make sure you get your front armor facing your enemies because you're really weak in the sides and back, like really weak. That's the only armor you really have is in the front of the tank. All right. As I said, now that we've done crew skills, consumables, and equipment, I'd like to talk a little bit about the tank. And as I kept mentioning the CDC, as I said, and that's always a good thing. If you're a Tier 8 premium tank and you're being compared to an AMX CDC, you're doing something right. Because I love the AMX CDC. I have it on both accounts. I have it 3 marked on both accounts. It's one of my go-to premium tanks in the game. And I just think it's an amazing tank. This tank is very similar to the CDC, especially when you talk about concealment value, spotting value, or view range. The gun on the CDC is better. Um, I'll just show you the CDC real quick. Here's the CDC. The CDC has slightly better aim time, better accuracy at .34. It has more pen, same alpha, quite slightly higher rate of fire. It has the same view range, and if you look to the right, you'll see the concealment value is 42, and the Edelweiss is 41. So what we're talking about, and then we'll also talk about speed and maneuverability too, but basically same concealment value, same view range in the Edelweiss. The power to weight ratio is definitely, the CDC is a much bigger, heavier tank, but it has a much more powerful engine. The Edelweiss, on the other hand, has a smaller engine, but it's much lighter, and it has these crazy tracks. Like, look at the terrain resistance on that. That's some of the best ground resistance in the game on these tracks. So they're both extremely fast and maneuverable tanks. The Edelweiss actually has a higher top speed, but the CDC has a better power to weight ratio. So both tanks are fast, maneuverable. They have the same concealment value, same view range. They are both good spotters. As far as the gun goes, the gun is definitely an advantage of the CDC as far as it has a slightly better rate of fire at 8.22 rounds per minute. This has 8 rounds per minute. The CDC has 212 millimeters of AP pen. Same alpha. This tank has a little slightly worse pen, but the premium round in this tank is APCR, not heat. The premium round, the CDC, is also APCR, so I'm not comparing it to the CDC there, but there's some tanks like the STA2, which has great AP pen, but it has APCR. It doesn't fire APCR as a premium round, it fires heat. APCR is a superior premium round to heat, in my opinion. So, .38 accuracy, not nearly as good as the .34 of the CDC. This is not quite a sniper's gun, but it is not a bad gun. .38, you can work with that. It is good. It's good enough. Yeah, there are going to be times, especially for long distance, but this isn't really. This is a medium range fighter. This is not a long distance sniper. I think the CDC excels more in the really long range sniping area. But this tank does work well from medium to long range. Just it excels more in the medium range. So, as I said, the gun goes towards the CDC or the Liberté 50 CMT type tanks, or the STA2. Those tanks have slightly better guns, but this tank has that incredible speed maneuverability, much like the CDC does, but the CDC doesn't have the armor that this tank has, and that's a pretty important point here. This tank, when you play the CDC, some people hate the CDC. I love it, but some people hate it. And one of the things they hate about it is you have like no armor options at all. I mean, you are trading at close distances. So with this tank, you have a good amount of armor on your upper plate, and that's really the only substantial amount of armor in the tank. And I will even say too, it's oddly shaped. This is probably one of the only tanks in the game where I've seen this kind of shape on the upper plate. It's bow shaped. Usually it's very straight, flat plate, and shells just kind of bounce off as you go higher. But this has got like a weird bow to it, which means like the higher up you go on the upper plate, I think it's even more bouncy until you get to the very top where you have that flat bar. I don't know. And players will learn the tank and they will shoot for that flat bar, but I think it's kind of a hard hit to get right on that flat bar. And if you miss the flat bar, if you're a little too low, you're going to hit the top of that upper plate, and then it's bounce city. So this is a very bouncy upper plate. It is the same millimeters thickness, I believe, as the Type 59. I'm not going to compare the armor of this tank to the Type 59. The Type 59 is known for its armor tier 8, but it is a similar thickness of armor in the upper plate area. It doesn't have the same lower plate thickness, but this lower plate on this tank, it's really kind of thin. It's downward shaped. It's kind of a hard pen. Unless you stand in front of your opponents like this and you give them all day long to aim at your lower plate, yeah, they'll pen it no problem. But if you're moving or if they're trying to auto lock fire you, I mean, it's a very hard hit. They have to like aim in on it. So, especially from medium to long range, that's a very difficult hit on the lower plate. They're much more likely to go right into your upper plate here. So, the frontal armor of the tank is tricky. It's bouncy. And then when you talk about the turret, this is not a hull down tank at all. I don't think you get hull down. You're like, oh, they're gonna bounce all over my turret. It's not that kind of turret where you have a very heavily armored turret face. As you can see, the most armor on the turret is on the sides here, but it's a very thin, hard to hit target. There's not a lot of flat spots on that turret. So if they hit anywhere off to the left or right, it's gonna bounce. It's just enough armor for ricochets there. I mean, yeah, they can if they hit you right in the mouth. I think they can pen you, or right in the forehead. I think they can pen you. But again, you're trying to go from medium to long range engagements here, where there is not an easy way for them to pen you right in the turret face. Again, it's not a hull down tank, but it's a very bouncy turret, and it's a very bouncy upper front plate. As far as the sides go, side scraping is not an option if you ask me. The side of the tank is, especially in that middle area right there, right around the tracks. That middle area is definitely an open window that they are going to love to pen you at. But here's something important that I want to note about the tracks on this tank. This tank has very interesting tracks, and not only does it have some of the best ground resistance in the game, but you normally see a thickness on the tracks of this right here, less than 20 millimeters. And here it states that they are 31 to 50 millimeters of track armor. Tracks aren't really armor, so I'm guessing this is trying to indicate that the track health is much stronger than normal on this tank, or maybe that they act as spaced armor more than tracks already act as spaced armor. I don't know. Something about these tracks is stronger than you normally see it. The only other tracks in my garage that I saw that were like this were on, I think, the Jig Tig. Um, so I don't know. I guess the point I'm trying to make is something about these tracks. I guess I should have the answer for you guys, but I don't. I'm trying to do this review kind of off the cuff, and I haven't researched it. But I think it's trying to say that the track health on this tank is higher than usual, and that maybe they act as even more of spaced armor than tracks usually do, which that's already what tracks do. Speaking of spaced armor, right here you got these like weird little purple panels on the side. Um, I think that's just some maybe decorative spaced armor that actually helps protect you from HE shells to the side. I think that's about all it could possibly do, and maybe protect your tracks at the top so that they have to actually shoot you in the track wheel or lower tracks to track you. But it's just interesting that they have these side panels of spaced armor on top of your already really meaty, powerfully strong tracks. And then you got like this like super bouncy turret and upper front plate. So again, the tank has some really interesting bouncy armor, and in comparison between the Type 59 and the CDC, both tier 8 premium tanks that you want to be compared to, both well-known premium tanks in the game. The survivability of this tank overall, as you can see on the right-hand side, is rated at 47. That's the same as the Type 59. I'm not saying it has the armor of the Type 59. They're different armor layouts. I'm just saying that this Edelweiss is bouncy. And as far as mobility and concealment and spotting, 49, 41, and 84. It's concealment and spotting values the same as the CDC. The mobility goes a little bit more towards the CDC, but I said that's deceptive because the CDC is much bigger and heavier, and the Edelweiss is got a smaller engine, not as much of horsepower, but it's also got it's got incredible ground resistance. Really moves too. So the CDC may be a little bit faster and more maneuverable, but the Edelweiss is right up next to it. has a higher top speed too. So, that's my breakdown of the tank. As I said, I wanted to make sure you guys were able to judge this tank for yourselves and have enough time to actually purchase it if you were interested. It's kind of a crossbreed between the CDC and the Type 59, so I think the beauty of this Edelweiss tank is the fact that it's so well-rounded. It's good at many things, and it's not too strong one way and lacking in others. It's just a good overall tank, a broken tank. I mean, an OP tank so far. I've only played 2 games in it. I'm going to show you those gameplay clips now, and you're going to see why I wanted to rush out a tank review and let you guys know that this tank is strong. If you're subscribing to my channel and you're watching my videos, I want to give you guys the inside scoop as soon as I get it, and I know I'm late on this. I should have purchased this tank the moment it came out in stores. I decided I didn't want it, and here 2 weeks later I've changed my mind. Next time there's a tank available that is kind of catching everyone's eye, maybe I'll go out and purchase it just to put a tank review out to you guys. Since I appreciate all the viewers, I've now eclipsed 100 viewers or 100 subscribers to my YouTube channel, and I really appreciate it. So maybe I'll take this a little bit more seriously and go out and get the newest, latest, and greatest tanks and show them to you guys right away. But I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay clip. Both of them, the only 2 that I have. But it's been an incredible start here. First 2 games in this tank. I don't think there's any way I can keep up this pace on this tank, but stay tuned. I'm sure I'll have many more Edelweiss videos coming out over the next week or 2. I definitely think that's a great start with this tank, so it's probably one of my favorite premium tanks for a while. But I wanted to make sure you guys were able to see the tank, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all the subscribers, and you guys keep watching the videos, and I will keep making them. Alright, see you guys out there.
We've got enemies in the area. Take them down or capture their base. up another win.